Even though I love Warhammer miniatures, today we will switch modeling niches, because I couldn't resist buying these kits. They are not Games Workshop, they are not even wargaming figures. They are airplanes, and they look so bad it's hilarious. Just look at this Photoshop masterpiece, with weird uneven cutout lines. Every piece of this box art has different resolution, and everything is blurry and pixelated, except this dude's face. It's 2025, so how it is possible someone produces this? And even more, some stores are selling them. There is a plot twist in all of that, but just by looking at it, I'm sure there is a pure gold waiting inside. So let's unbox these kits. First thing I see is instruction, with big letters, warning. What's going on with this plastic? It looks like it started to cure before filling every cavity, but I guess all parts are here. Just the helicopter rotor is warped. Here is another weird thing on the plastic. No idea what's going on here. But look at all this excess material. These aren't just mold lines. The plastic literally leaked between the mold halves. That means a lot of cleaning and reshaping ahead. Honestly, I hope the parts don't fit, because if they do, I would be disappointed. Instruction is nice though. There are quick guides for beginners, and while the assembly steps aren't 100% correct, the drawings are more detailed than the model itself. This is a gun, allegedly. I removed all the parts from the sprues, and I swear each kit is made from a different type of plastic. This one feels like an old PVC pipe. I cleaned up the wings and dry fitted them to check the alignment. And disappointment. How is this possible? I sanded the bottom to make sure it's flat for gluing. The plastic is surprisingly elastic, which could actually help with assembly. I locked the parts in place with rubber bands, so nothing shifts while I apply extra thin cement. The bands also help squeeze the parts together for a tighter bond. By the way, you don't need to apply glue between the parts, just run it along the seam and low surface tension will pull it inside. And then I discovered something amazing. The rubber bands have an auto-release feature. I glued the fuselage the same way and moved on to the back wing. But hold on, the instructions say to attach it the wrong way around. I double-checked the drawings and yeah, they messed that up. This plastic melts more than usual when you apply extra thin, but it also behaves a bit like a rubber. I even managed to stretch it slightly. In some areas, when I squeezed the parts together, the glue created something that almost looked like a weld line. Now, I'm almost sure welding wasn't used on airplanes like this. But honestly, I'm not going to stress over small details on this model. Of course, I cleaned up every mold line and defect. But let's be real. Nothing is going to make this kit significantly better. Or worse. Normally, what keeps me going through the long process of model building and sanding is knowing that the details will look great in the end. But this time, it was heartbreaking. I spent all that effort trying to make this kit look good, but there was nothing to make look good. This is not what model building should feel like. So here is my advice. If you are buying a model as a gift, don't go for the cheapest one. Even if it's for a kid, a bad model won't spark excitement. It will just lead into frustration and disappointment. Instead of discovering a new hobby and what it has to offer, they might just give up entirely. Here I want to give huge thanks to my very first Patreon supporter, Wojciech. Be like Wojciech and visit my Patreon and see what I've got planned for you when you decide to join my hive of wardrobe modelings. If you liked my Dreadnought video, I know you will love what you find there. Back to the build. I sanded the edges of the wings to remove a small overlap. I ran out of sanding sponges, so I tested this glass sanding stick instead. I cleaned up the underside of the fuselage, where the wing would attach, and I sanded other connection points to make the seams hopefully invisible under the paint. A clamp would have helped to attach the wing to the fuselage, but I managed just with my hands. Either way, I applied Tamiya putty to blend the connection, making it look like a single sheet of metal. I also filled the cockpit floor because aside from the seats, there is nothing inside. Oh, and there was mysterious hole on the bottom. No idea what it's for, but I feel that too. I was also missing one of the clear window pieces, so problem solved. Hole shut. Once the putty dried, I sanded everything smooth and flush as possible with my very limited sanding options. And I kept running out of those options. but after all the parts were in place. I was finally ready for painting. Now, are these models bad because someone is trying to scam us? No. Turns out they are just really old. While preparing this video, I found some interesting information about the company Plastyk, the manufacturer of these kits. In a small reportage by Adam Kawecki, I learned that Plastyk no longer produces these models. They shut down operations and are just selling off the remaining stock. The company started in 1945, but they only began producing model kits around 1917. Back then, these were probably the only models available in Poland. The process was also completely different. Model masters were sculpted by hand in copper, and then, using electricity, the metal was heated until it burned the shapes into the mold matrix. The plastic they used for these kits, it was literal trash. Scraps from other factories, ground up, melted down and turned into airplanes. But after reading about their history, my mindset completely changed. I'm not just holding crappy kit anymore. This is something more. It's a piece of Polish modeling history. A kit that many of us here started with. In fact, I'm almost certain my first model as a child was probably one of these. It's a relic, and even though it's a total piece of shit, it's going to have a special place in my collection. So what did this whole experience teach me? First of all, have a big supply of sanding sponges on hand. And second, we as wargamers, we tend to look into the future, into the other universes, while historical model building also has interesting stories to tell. Stories that actually happened. And maybe I was never a fan of history itself, but holding this model and knowing what it is and what it means for Polish modelers, it's definitely a different feeling when dealing with sci-fi. Maybe, just maybe, I may be finally ready for a proper scale model build.